So very good morning to all of you here. So it's a nice Saturday morning, and I welcome you to the 44th episode of Gyaniki Tech Talk. So now you see that the EV segment is witnessing a paradigm shift in incentive-laden deals that are being offered by both the central and the state governments. So next, the step that has to be taken is most EV makers and industry players are now focusing on the expanded charging network for those EVs to be set up. So now today with us we have Mr. Dheeman Kadam, the Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder of goEgoNetwork, advocate of equal opportunity in the technology sector. This Dheeman manages and the sales and marketing strategy for goEgo. He is focused on the mass adoption of electric vehicles and deployment of charging stations across India. Prior to joining goEgo, Steven was the CEO of Car OK, a startup which aggregated and standardized local and car workshops. Mr. Demon's startup is recognized by NASCOM and Tai Pune as the Startup of the Year runner-up in 2014. He is an engineer from Pune University. Mr. Deeman is passionate about entrepreneurship and gives lectures on this same subject. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today, sir.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Dheeman, as we, this charging network is kind of the topic of the year. 2022 is going to be the biggest evolution year for it yet, right? And you have been in this area for quite a few years now. So, uh, where did it all start? And what was the key motivation behind goEgo?
Yeah, so a little a bit of a background about what the company does, and then I'll just dive into the answer. So we are a electric vehicle charging infrastructure company, wherein we are the guys who enable electric vehicles to get charged and move around your city, your highways, everything around the entire infrastructure, which uh, we believe will promote adoption of electric vehicles. So this journey, as such, started in 2018, wherein our founder, Mr. Shantan Chakrabarti, was based in the Netherlands, and he saw the entire evolution of electric vehicles in the Netherlands, wherein the Amsterdam airport moved to fully electric, wherein Teslas were the taxis. And he had certain ambition of coming back to India, and thought that this was the prime time to make sure that we are back here and getting India ready for the EV revolution. So in 2019, he came down, and we met, and I had just exited out of my startup, and we decided that, hey, this is a good opportunity. So all the way from tailpipe pollutants to clean mobility, for me, it was a 180-degree switch. Uh, and we dived right into it. Initially, the company was thought of the entire software of managing charging infra. Uh, then, as we got deeper into it, we met Mr. Gadkari that time, and he said that, hey, it's a little different out here. You need to also get the hardware in place. You need to get the physical being of a charging station than just managing them remotely. So we went back to the drawing boards. Shantan went back to the Netherlands, and we hired a R&D team there and dived right into making this a reality. So there we developed our first charging station, tested it with Tesla, uh, got a lot of good response there, and then Here we prototyped it with HPCL, and we were lucky enough to get a pilot order for 5. That just started our journey and proving that product prowess is what will enable EV charging infra play in this Indian ecosystem. So in 2020, our first installation happened in India, and from there on in, yeah, today we are proudly above 100 odd installations.
And what were the major roadblocks that you found as far as, this is a mythical question in the sense like anyone, when we ask why you are not pursuing buying an electric vehicle, the answer is 9 out of 10 times related to the charging infra. We don't think that the charging is there yet, and then there are companies like yours who are dedicated in establishing this network. So where do the two things meet, the expectations and the and what is happening on the ground?
So the two things meet. Eventually, it will happen that there will be charging infra everywhere, and electric vehicles will obviously uh, supersede the ICE competitors. Currently, the biggest roadblock is that people are unaware, and there is not enough conviction in any individual to take that risk. What I mean by this risk is a multifold thing, that an individual, first of all, when he goes out to buy an EV, his experience is very scattered or not up to the mark compared to your competitor ICE, wherein you go to a showroom, you just pay the money and you book your vehicle and the vehicle is delivered. Here, when you actually decide to go and buy an EV, there are too many roadblocks. So first, you have to find out whether it's the right range, it's the right product. Uh, at least in the two-wheeler space, there are so many players. Whether there is enough conviction in that brand, whether they are fly-by-the-day companies. After you've done all this, then there is the booking. If you are doing a booking with one of the bigger brands like a TVS or a Bajaj, there's a 3 to 8 month waiting period. After that, you have to go back to your home and think where you're going to charge. The society is a big roadblock. Then there is the entire ecosystem of the discoms, the electricity providers, wherein you are thinking whether you have to buy a new meter, how do you apply for a green meter, what are the special rates. And after all this, you finally get your vehicle, and then you are wondering, what if my vehicle stops somewhere in the middle? Then who is there to take care of me? All these things are bigger roadblocks on the EV purchase side, wherein streamlining this, and companies like us who create infrastructure in your residential societies, residential welfare associations, at least take that one roadblock away, wherein you're not thinking where am I going to charge or whether I'm going to take that battery up. The second biggest thing is these big brands trying to consolidate and then switch to electric. Now, both the TVS and Bajaj have shown a lot of interest in this space and invested and spun off companies there, wherein Bajaj is building a factory, TVS is already looking at launching a couple of products. What happens on the infrastructure side is every residential association just thinks that hey, there is not even a single EV. So what they need to realize is that first the infrastructure will come, and then the adoption will happen. It's generally every trend like roads or any infrastructure. First the infrastructure is built, and then automatically the adoption happens, and people get into that. So right now, streamlining a couple of things wherein we have taken onus on the infrastructure side. The OEMs have to take onus on the vehicle purchase side, and the discoms have to make the entire accessibility of electricity and specialized rates easy. So discoms then make it easier for a end user uh, to gain access to these special rates of charging. So all this is happening. It is in due course of, I hope this year that all these things are streamlined and we get to see ease of adoption towards EV.
So, where is goEgo concentrating on? Is it on B2B? Is it on B2C? Is it on B2 societies? What is the main concentration?
So currently, we are in a hybrid mode wherein we do cater to B2B, wherein we have our installation in a company like Cybage in HPCL. So these are entire B2Bs wherein it's a pure play sale, and then they operate it at their network or a captive solution, you may call it. HPCL is on a public network. Then there is the societies wherein we give it on an OPEX model. So that's for promoting adoption. That's our early entry into the EV ecosystem. So that's something which is very unique to us, wherein we are tied up with a company like Park Plus, who's enabling us to put it across 500 residential welfare associations across 5 cities. In Pune, we are in 100 odd societies where it's been a success, and we see that once a charging station is put, within the next 4 months, we see at least one EV vehicle, one electric vehicle charging on it. We are trying to bring that time down, wherein we want it to be less than 15 days. That's a little ambitious right now, but that's what our goal would be towards. And for the B2C side, obviously our app is in on the Play Store, on the iOS, and yeah, people with electric vehicles can download the app. It's called GoMe, and make sure that they are enjoying our network, our entire ecosystem of chargers which are placed across at least Maharashtra, Delhi, and Karnataka.
Okay. So one interesting thing you mentioned there is that you provide this to the societies on a OPEX model, right?
Yeah.
And that also aligns with one of the audience questions, which is uh, from a housing society perspective, what is the tentative cost, and what is what is that uh, mental hurdle that the society needs to overcome in terms of the first thing comes in society matters is what's the cost and who's paying for it, right? So what's the offering there?
Yeah, thanks for this question, because that's the entire crux of what we are doing on the OPEX side, and it's a evolution of the pitch. I mean, we started off with offering it for 20,000, and the two-wheeler charger for 20,000, and the four-wheeler charger for 40,000 as a partnership fee. Then we evolved it wherein even the 20,000 for certain residential welfare associations or housing societies was a big concern, because there is a committee, then there is an AGM which has to happen. All this was taking too long for us to do any site acquisition. So we said that, hey, we might just as well give it as an amenity, so the society doesn't have to pay anything. So we tried that, and we've been very successful with that. So the society has no capex involved, and standard installation is included. Beyond 10 meter of wiring, the society has to either get it done or pay us for it. That's the only dent in the society as such, which has to be borne. Apart from that, what the society gives us is space, is an access to their three-phase meter, and we install, and that's where it starts. So on the customer side, every time there is a charging session, we have certain markup on the electricity, which we charge as a convenience, and that's how we do the business and recover our cost of the charger.
So per unit, what is what the end customer pays?
So it depends. If there is a green meter which is installed, then the green meter has 4 rupees 87 paisa as the charge here in Pune or Maharashtra. On top of that, we have a convenience fee of 5 rupees and a markup varying from 3 rupees to 10 rupees, depending on the kind of real estate we see, wherein there are multiple factors which include the number of tenements, the area of the society, as well as the city it is in.
Okay. So that's around 12 rupees for like a 2 kilowatt hour pack, right? So like a 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers range can effectively come with 16 to 20 rupees of just spend.
Yeah. So what our aim is to keep it below 30 paisa per kilometer, and
Mhm.
in certain cases it comes down to as low as 12, 13 paisa as well.
Okay. Now, the other thing you mentioned is about the two-wheelers. Now, a lot of these don't have standardization on the connectors or the final connection between the charger to the vehicle. So, what support is given there by goEgo?
So initially, one of the bigger brands, Ather, had a hurdle there, which we saw when we placed it in housing societies with a Ather owner. He decided to make a connector on his own, but before that, we had made sure that that side is taken care of on the charging itself, on the charging station itself. So yeah, for Ather, there is kind of an adapter, but Ather now also has opened their connector for public, so we know what it is and how the communication happens. But as the technology grows, as adoption happens, I think the consolidation towards a single connector, like the car side, will happen, and most of the OEMs will standardize it. Like for example, Bajaj and the TVSs have the same kind of play, and that's where the universal connector will, end of the day, make it happen. On the DC fast side, where right now Ola is also trying to get something out, we'll have to wait and see how that pans out.
What is so you have interacted with a lot of customers who already have electric two-wheelers, and what is their overall view with regards to slow or fast? What is that max time they want to charge the vehicles in?
So that is a, I think, a problem of the mindset. So when we actually started installing our first initial days, everyone had this question about how fast is it going to charge, or why is it going to take 3 hours to 4 hours? How will I wait for so long and everything? What people realize is that this is the most efficient way. Uh, there is no detour on your route. You don't have to go to a petrol station to actually charge your vehicle. It's about the idle time of your vehicle. That means you're parked overnight in your housing complex, you're parked for the entire day in your office or your college educational institutes. All these things are where your vehicle is idle, and the biggest or the point going for electric vehicles is that we are not limited by supply chain. That means the oil companies deliver the petrol and diesel to certain gas stations, and only at those gas stations can you refill. Here, wherever there is a point of electricity, you can charge. So anytime you're idle, you know that your vehicle can get charged. And that's something which I believe is more efficient. It's just about the mindset. It's about you feeling that, hey, if it was charged faster, then I would get going faster. But I think except for the fleet kind of use cases where the idle time is really, really low, this is a better use case.
Now, on the other side of it, there is a lot of talk about swapping, swappable battery packs. And somehow this word has now entered everyone's vocabulary because of the budget focus also on swappable.
Yeah.
So, where do you see this ecosystem go? Like, what kind of mix do you envision?
Yeah. So, as I told you, from continuing from my previous answer, wherever you are sweating your asset, that is, your bike needs to just do more and more kilometers. Your idle time is very important. Like in case of fleets, like deliveries or all these kinds, the swappable system will take a good foothold. But charging infra, as you know, will charge those batteries as well. So every battery will need charging. So charging infra is going to be there. On the other side, for your use cases of personal mobility, there are two big deterrents here. One is that on day one you buy your bike, the second day when you go to a battery swapping station you might end up with a 2 year old 3 year old battery. That mindset itself, and then whether the performance is sustained, it's the same, is a big question mark. The second thing is on these battery swapping infra kind of place wherein you know that one single vehicle sold will at least need two times the batteries. That means more than 45% of the cost is the battery. So you are almost doubling your investment on that side. And that itself is a huge investment, wherein then the smaller or the players which are non-OEM will not have a foothold itself in this. So uh, there is gonna be place for everyone, wherein charging infra will also be there, battery swapping will also be there, and it's the difference is gonna be personal mobility and all the other fleet or those kind of use cases. Especially on the four-wheeler side, it is a far-fetched kind of a thing wherein their battery swapping was an idea which got no response or a bad response in the Europe and the West. So I guess the trend will be similar because battery swapping on four-wheelers will be very, very far-fetched.
Now, let's talk a bit about technology. What kind of remote monitoring are you doing for the chargers? What kind of command center do you have? And what is the scalability of the same?
So currently we have operations set up in Pune. The entire CMS is operational, wherein every charger to the last second gives a pulse, and that pulse is monitored by our operations. So most of the things like your metering, like charger stop, charger start, all these are remote actions which happen. Most of the things which are like updates or upgrades are over the air. So all this is again unmanned, remotely happening. Also, certain things where a charger goes down, either due to uh, failure of electricity side or some failure on the vehicle side, we immediately come to know, and there is an action which is defined as a process. So entirety to the last second, we can monitor the health of the charger 24/7.
And is this happening like you said, in Pune, you have the network. So Pune, you have your operations also. And
Yeah.
how do you intend to take this all across the country?
So we have vendors across the country wherein there is a training which happens. We certify certain electrical engineers and make sure that they understand what this equipment is all about, and including installation, wherein installation, if we had to do pan India, obviously it won't be everyone on our payroll. So we have vendors who help us do the installation and also help us do operation and maintenance. It is centrally monitored, but not centrally employed.
Okay, understood. Now, especially in the fast charging and the passenger car chargers, there is this universal protocol of OCCP, which is doing this monitoring of the charging stations and sending streamlined data to the servers and so on. So, is compatibility with those type of standards also being considered?
Yeah, so we are the only company right now in India to be OCA certified. That is the governing body for the OCPP, the protocol which is defined between the EVSE and the cloud or the CMS. Uh, what that means is that we have passed all the test cases. There are uh, across the globe, I think only 15 odd companies which have that certification. Uh, Most of it is going to be on the OCPP side. 85% of all vehicles are uh, basically CCS2 or type 2 compliant. So that's the protocol which most of them adhere to. So it puts us in a very commanding position. Why? One, the scalability is really high. And two, uh, rest assured you are catering to more than 80% of the market. So either ways, and we see that I think it's going to be the 100% of it, wherein even Tesla, apart from the US, is now on the CCS2 side of connector. So this is something which uh, we see even on the two-wheeler side. There will be a common standard, as I previously mentioned. It's
Yeah.
just where the big boys consolidate.
So, as far as uh, the app side of things, uh, what we understand that there are today hundreds of apps in India which help you locate the charging station. They have different level of information in them. They may or may not allow you to really schedule a booking of the charger or anything further. But as far as location, there are hundreds of apps on the Play Store available. So, what type of integrations does your app has, and are you working with other such providers, or are you working with charging companies to other charger companies to get more chargers on the app?
So that's the ambition. Right now, we are currently only showing our own charging stations on the app. We have certain requests of showcasing our charging stations on others' apps. It is very much possible for the location of charging station apps where we are also a part of it. There is a term called as OCPI, which basically means that you are allowed to do roaming. So you can charge from my app on someone else's charger, and then there is a clearing which happens. So that is something which we are working on. We are trying with certain companies and certain CPOs as well, so that we know that uh, we are compatible across the nation, wherein these tie-ups will enable us to also be present in markets where we ourselves have not put the hardware infrastructure.
So, in terms of the charger density today, what is your estimate, let's say in Pune, what is the overall charger density out here?
So here, public charging is probably around means in the early 50s. With the shared asset or the limited access in the societies, it is around 150 to 200, and personal chargers are equivalent to the number of vehicles sold, because the number of vehicles which are sold are early, and every vehicle has the charging station packaged with its sale. Car side.
And right. So, also on the passenger car side, today what we are seeing is a sort of, as you mentioned, a consolidation towards the CCS2 type of charging. But we are seeing multiple players out there, the Tatas and the Adanis and Reliance. They have also started setting up their network. And so, is this going to be a big brand takeover ultimately, or we are going to see pockets of zones where companies specialize in certain geographies for these charging systems?
So again, it's a hypothesis, so everyone has their own guess. Uh, what we think again is that there's enough room for uh, many players to come in. Right now, it's a early market. So from the smaller charger aggregators to all the way your Adanis and Tata Powers, there is enough room. What is happening is that it's about location end of the day. So location is going to be a major aspect. So currently the land grab has started. So most of the locations we identify are either approached by Tata Power or one of the competitors. So that is something which we see. So yes, location advantage is going to be of prime importance when this competition heats up or the consolidation starts to happen. Second biggest thing is customer service, wherein what we see is that when a Tata Power or a Discom enters into this market, their major play is electricity. On the customer service side, they're going to need a lot of play, wherein their original business is uh, providing electricity and sending you a bill at the end of the month. That is the only single touch point which they see with a customer. But with charging infra, there is my entire cycle of recharge of my wallet, of my entire experience of a charger location being shown, but the charger is already unavailable. All these things on a day-to-day basis is what will make a charging infra company a success or a failure, wherein daily interactions with customer and giving a prime experience or a luxurious experience on this is very important, because as you see that this consolidation will happen, where it will be a natural extension of your vehicle, wherein you'll see in-dash and everything. And this will be a play where customer service becomes prime importance, because no one wants to get stranded and then have sleepless night over where his vehicle is parked. So this is something which we see. There's room for everyone, but the competition or the consolidation will happen towards one location and two customer service.
Very nice. What if we say the next 3 years, what are the number of chargers, or what is the target that goEgo is chasing?
uh, Ambitious target is at least 20,000 charging stations. So that in itself will enable us to be a leader in this space. Uh, on the network member side, we are looking at growing to at least 15,000 electric vehicle owners. That is also something which we are aggressively looking at in the next year itself.
Very nice. That is really ambitious, but sounds more doable than what it sounded like 2 years ago, in a way, with the way things are moving. So we have some audience questions. Mr. Vijay, are you there to ask your question? So Dheemanji, Vijay is asking about the operation and maintenance of the charging stations, and do we have enough skills in this area to scale up with the demand?
Yeah, thanks, Vijay, for the question. It takes certain amount of training. It takes certain amount of technical know-how, but it's not rocket science. So, with the kind of exponential growth of charging stations we see, I guess it will bring more and more opportunities also to people to reskill or upskill. And we are also in this to create an ecosystem of employment, so people will reskill and upskill and be available for operations and maintenance. Currently, with the vendors, we are training the manpower so that they understand the nuances of the charging station.
Okay. One more question, Dheeman. This standardization of the charging connectors. Do you think that it's a topic that now needs immediate attention and an answer, or it can still be swept under the rug for some more time?
Four-wheeler, though, it's already standardized. So let's consider that this is for the two-wheeler, three-wheeler space.
Yes.
It is a need for the hour, but unless and until uh, these big boys commit to a standard, I don't think the infrastructure players will have a say. Most of it is related to the battery and the OEM communication. So I think it will take at least a year for us to realize which way the connector is going. But yes, currently also the talks are on. We are also a part of certain OEM consortiums where we are uh, also looking at either providing adapters or making sure that the standard is
Okay. Anyone else in the audience having a question? You can unmute and ask. Mukund, do you have a question?
Hello, hi Shekhar, and
Yeah,
hello
please
Deepak,
go ahead.
sir. Yeah. So my question is for the two-wheelers and the removable batteries, especially, we can do the charging from home as well, right? So, are is there any market for that particular sector? Is the one thing, and is there any charger need for society?
Yeah, so this is a very common question which we used to get last year, wherein people were like, I'll take the battery home and charge. First of all, the batteries are heavy. So it's almost a 9-10 kilo battery, and our apartment buildings are multi-storied. So this is something which we see that once the infrastructure is placed, then no one removes the battery and goes up. Second, removing the battery is also a task wherein you have certain spanners, you have certain things which need to be unplugged and then taken out. So I think playing with electricity or those kind of things are a hindrance to people taking out the batteries and charging at home. On the swappable side, obviously the battery removal and everything is easier. But for personal mobility, you going to a swapping station and then uh, getting an old battery or a new battery, or the performance of the battery not being guaranteed, is a big issue. So yes, there is currently a need of home charging where people are doing it where the infrastructure is not available at their doorstep.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Deepak, you can ask your
Yeah,
question.
yeah. So good
Sorry.
evening, Shekharji and Dhimanji. I got a question which is having three parts maybe. Some of the things I got it cleared. My society is having 545 flats, and
Yeah.
all the members have got their parking slots. So the question is like individual parking slot can have normal charging, right? It is a matter of only putting a 15 amps AC and then a connection and all. And but what about the fast charging? So that is one. Secondly, for 545 flats, how many fast charging facilities or stations will be required so that people will not have issues or waiting time? And the last thing is, what will be the charges? Although you told that the I think installation will be free, that I think, but what will be the charges or impact on the society as well as on the individual consumer or individual flat owners for this?
So let me start off by having answering to your first part, wherein see, you already have an existing 545 parkings.
Yeah.
Their personal chargers or personal charging stations is what will be recommended. It won't be a 15 ampere point, because if you have a Tata Nexon or a MG, currently let's consider these two, that 15 ampere point is going to heat up, because these guys, these batteries are hungry, they'll pull a lot of current, and a 15 ampere point is not something which will be recommended. It takes certain technical know-how, it takes certain safety, it takes a 5 core wire from your meter to your parking slot. All this is which will enable a 7.4 or a 22 kilowatt load to get pulled by the car. So your onboard charger will pull that kind of capacity, or in the Nexon's case, a 3.3 kilowatt. So this is something which you will have to uh, keep in mind. It's not just a 15 ampere point or a AC point, which you say, or a refrigerator power point, which we say is enough. There is a lot of uh, damage which can happen. The biggest one being a fire. So that is very important for people and individuals to understand, and why a EV charging station or a EV SE, which is electric vehicle supply equipment, is required, because those are the standards which are recommended across the globe by OEMs who make electric vehicles. What the second part is that when it is a shared infrastructure, it is about the utilization. So what we see is that once you cross 50% of utilization of a single shared asset, so a single EVSE can charge up to 3 vehicles. So once you see up to 50% utilization, considering 24 hours in a day, that means 12 hours of utilization, you will need an additional EVSE. So considering that all 545 flats decide to buy an EV, which is a distant
That is
future,
very, yeah. Yes.
but I'm hoping it will happen. Then after the shared asset reaches a certain threshold, individuals will have the problem of queuing up. So then individuals will start buying personal chargers, wherein then individual uh, people will have to get into their own parking and get the charging done. About fast charging, none of the societies I see will get into DC fast because a single equipment itself currently costs 8 to 10 lakhs. And with just the added advantage of time, say it shortens your
Charging
charging
time.
time by half or less than half. That means if a Tata Nexon on your AC charger charges in 6 hours or 8 hours, it charges on your DC fast in 1.5 hours. So for that, I don't see any housing society uh, buying a 8-10 lakh rupee charger. Uh, it
Mhm.
doesn't make sense for DC fast to get into it unless it is like a big RWA wherein it is more than 1,500 flats and there is already like 10 or 15 vehicles. Still, the problem of queuing will happen because not everyone will have the staggered way of charging.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Sarvanan, you have a question?
My question is simple. Why? Because of, in Gujarat, Ambani was constructing hydrogen vehicles. So, how this EV will compete with hydrogen vehicles in future?
Uh, Thank you, Sarvana. See, I am not a predictor of the future, so I would rather stay grounded in the present. I see electric vehicles on road. I see them charge. I see them traveling. I have not yet seen a hydrogen vehicle on road or a hydrogen pump on road. So I'll wait till it becomes a model or at least something is there on road where there is meat to this. I think the technology will 100% be very useful in terms of long hauls like your trucking and because currently also certain locomotives have that. So for those use cases I think it is very important for the hydrogen technology to evolve, but at least on the two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler space, I believe it is a distant future, and yeah, I will hope to see those vehicles on road to comment on them.
Yeah. So, Mr. Sarvana, I'll just add to that, at least this two-wheeler, three-wheeler segment, and a good portion of the Indian passenger cars, we will continue seeing them as battery electric. Maybe the material of the battery will keep on changing. Uh, and anything above a SUV is probably going to have a future in hydrogen and go back to the fuel pump and get filled like the CNG filling. So that is also what we anticipate. Now, just to share, also Reliance has now invested in one of the top three-wheeler companies, electric three-wheeler and battery electric powertrain company in India recently last week. So there is everyone's playing everything because I don't think it is predictable what is going to be the right ecosystem in the future. And nearly all technologies will have a play in some market or the other. So we can, yeah, Abhishek, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good morning, Dheeman, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, my question is when we see the feature known as Roadside Assist, so is it something available for all the two-wheeler, EV two-wheeler segments, two to four wheelers? Or I believe it is pretty much standard for the four wheelers because it would need the roadside assist feature. But when it comes to the two wheelers, I'm not sure. And if that is the case, so will be the roadside assist something standardized, or will it be vendor based and there we can see some competition?
It is a business opportunity for sure. Right now, there is enough range anxiety for it to be a booming business. What happens when the market gets a lot of infrastructure is that then this becomes a highway or a use case where it is only in remote locations where currently, like you see your ice, it is where you're stranded in the middle of the road somewhere remotely. That is where you will face a issue. So I believe, yeah, roadside assist in case of getting stranded because of charging. Currently, yes, it has a lot of potential even in cities or dense areas. But as the infrastructure grows, it is gonna be moving more and more towards remote locations. So I guess it has its space, and people are willing to pay a premium for it. So it has a very good business case because no one likes to get stranded. So yeah, that has a good business case.
Okay, so I think that's all we had time for. So, Dheeman, any parting words from your side? Hopefully, the breadth of the questions and the nature of the questions do remind you that this is a very exciting domain that you are in, and it will continue to rapidly grow.
Yes, so thanks for having me, Shekhar. And parting words are, yes, it is an exciting space, but we need to realize that we are not even 1% of the entire market right now. So, whatever are your hindrances, be the first mover, go ahead, uh, buy that electric vehicle. I have attended enough conferences, I have given enough interviews, but it is your own free will which will enable you to move to clean mobility. Even though there are certain roadblocks, you will have to take that first step towards making sure that it's a sustainable future. It's the most efficient way to ride, which you are committing to. So I believe that if the decision of your next vehicle being bought is just around the corner, please commit to an EV because yeah, in the next year or so we are going to be there in your residential society, or else just call us and say that, hey, I have purchased an EV, please can you come and put the infra. We'll be happy to come and put the infra, but for that, please commit to the electric vehicle, please commit to clean mobility, and that ways we can at least get into double figures. I am looking forward with this kind of excitement that we will be at least 10% in the next 2 years.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Dheeman. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in today. And we'll continue with our next episode next week. Thanks a lot.